Welcome to Accelerate My Practice. So glad you could join me here today. I actually remembered not to say us. I was kind of proud of that for a moment. So glad you could join me here today. Today I want to be talking about some front office type skills. We've been on this role play series for quite some time now, dealing with how to present cases, how to talk about hygiene, how to do this, how to do that. And what I want to cover today is what do you do in the front when the phone rings and you run into some certain issues. Confirmation calls, people wanting to cancel, cancellation. But today I want to start with confirming. And as anybody who's been around me long enough knows, I'm not a big fan of the term confirmation calls. Now I understand behind the scenes we can call them confirmation calls, but when I'm in front of patients, I definitely do not want to use the term confirmation at all. And the reason being is I think it creates a psychological challenge for the patient, meaning the minute you say, hey, I'll call you a week before, 2 weeks before to confirm your appointment, I'm thinking to myself 6 months out or a few weeks out, depending on if it's a sort of appointment, I'm thinking to myself it's not a real appointment. It's not really confirmed, so I can schedule something else. Of course, the challenge is if they don't call you back, you got to stick to what you're saying and fill their spot with something else. And what you're doing is you're training your patients that this is very important. Communication in our office is important. And when we leave you a message, we want you to call us back. And which isn't too much to ask. I mean, if they were leaving you a message about something, they would expect you call them back. So there's no reason why we can't expect the same thing in return. So if they call back and they call back beyond that deadline, I would simply answer it with, hey, I'm so glad to hear from you. And did you get my message? And of course, I'll probably say, yep, sure did. Well, I'm really sorry. I filled that spot for somebody else because I didn't hear from you. But let me see if I can work you into a different time and work them back in and fill the appointment. Because it just becomes a great teaching opportunity. And I want to play a video for you from one of our clients that was real hesitant to do this because it creates great trepidation of I'm going to upset the patient, I'm going to take their slot, whatever the case is. And I want you to hear how effectively this worked for a particular office, one of our clients. So we'll sit here and we'll play and hear what Rachel has to say.
Okay, Rachel, this is our third day together. You are the new hygiene coordinator in this office. Not knowing what that is, how it works, what it does, I put you in some pretty uncomfortable spots yesterday, and I realized that I did. I pushed you to the limits that you probably got a little angry with me, but you put your head down and you went to work. The good news is, could you share with AMP what the results of that uncomfort was for you yesterday?
Well, yesterday you helped me with a script, and instead of going 24 hours out on calling patients to remind them of their appointment, we're going like 3-4 days out. And if I have to leave a message, the script that you gave me was to remind the patient of their appointment, that's what I'm calling about and who I am, and to also let them know that they needed to get back with me by noon the next day, that way, and to let them know to keep their time. And I got more callbacks to confirm appointments than I ever have since I've been here. It was like so exciting to know they were actually listening to those words and realizing I need to get back with them and let them know I'm coming.
It's amazing to hear the feedback of the trepidation resulted in more callbacks than she's ever gotten before. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. We want to drive the urgency, train the people to be involved, to be an active participant in their own health. So you just got to figure out what the emotional triggers are to inspire them to stay. And that all comes out of looking at their chart. If it's somebody who hasn't been on 3-month recall, it's a guy as an example, and he's, now I'm sitting at the 9, 10, 11 months range, you can have the same conversation. Hey, Darren, I'm concerned about putting this appointment off a few months because you're already 2 or 3 months past. And the issue is I'm worried that statistically, when people go past their 6-month recall, if something's happening, your medications change, somehow it's amazing how it can impact your health, and you can slide right off that cliff into that periodontal disease category. And as an outcome of that, you end up with these conditions, as we've already discussed. And I don't want to see that happen to you. And then throw that string of conditions back in there for the person to go, ooh, yeah, I didn't realize. And I think, again, you'll find it can be a great, great motivational tool. So another one with the 3-month recall is to look at the patient and say, you know, my concern is that if we get behind, that you could end up back in the periodontal, you know, needing the retreatment of periodontal disease. And many insurance companies won't pay for that. They'll pay for it like every 2 or 3 years, depending on the insurance company. Check local listings. They'll pay for it every couple of years, but now if we're still within that window and we push this back and you end up back in a bad place, now it's not a maintenance appointment, it's back to a quad scale, which you probably remember had to use anesthetic, and I'm trying to keep you from getting back there. Now, if you tell me you've been brushing and flossing like after every single meal, maybe you're okay. But of course, we know the odds are they haven't been, because that's how they got perio in the first place. So I'm a little worried by pushing this off that we end up back in the same place. I really don't want to have that happen to you. Is there a way that we can work this out? And again, use silence. So some other things to contemplate when it comes to scheduling that 6-month appointment as an example. One of the things I would contemplate that I think is really helpful is to don't book it exactly at 6 months. Book it at like 6 months and 3 weeks, because we know that the rules of insurance say you can't bring them forward. But now if they're on a quick call list and they enjoy being on a quick call list, if you book it out at 6 months and 3 weeks, now you can bump them up a little bit. So as long as you always do that 6 month, 3 week, then you know if it's within 3 weeks, anybody within that 3 week time period, you can bump up, and it allows you to use that person to fill the schedule if a hole arises. And then what we don't want to do is be asking questions like, would you like to schedule? Yes, no questions are bad. Rather use the alternative close, if you will. Darren, would you prefer Monday or Tuesdays? Darren, would you prefer mornings or afternoons? And no is never an option I'm giving in these instances. It's always this one or this one. And I think if you do that, you'll find it works out really well. And then ask the question of, do you want to be on the quick call list if we can move you up, and would that work better for you? And that way, again, you have options there. You can put that in the notes, or depending on the software you have, you can actually use a quick call list. But it allows you to have that ability to move people up. Whereas if you book them right at the 6 month mark, you don't have the flexibility to move them up because you violate that 6 month rule. So I would actually put you obviously see the data in there, but make sure that we pad ourselves a little bit of time. And I think you'll find that works really, really well. So some other things when it comes to scheduling production as an example, it allows you to call the doctor and say, hey, I've had a change in or the patient, I've had a change in the doctor's schedule. I know you were really excited to get this. I know you're not really excited, but you wanted to get this crown done because you were concerned that this would become a root canal and a crown. In addition, if we waited, and I have a hole in the schedule, I can bump you up if you'd like. And again, creating urgency. And I hope it's not coming across that I'm trying to create fear, because that's not the case. I'm just trying to keep people engaged, and I'm trying to use reality, because I know for a fact that at some point, somebody who has a root canal, if it's 2-3 millimeters from a pulp, 2 millimeters from a pulp, at some point it's going to get in and become a root canal. Now, is it 1 year, 2 years, 6 months? I don't have any clue. But I do want to use it as a tool to motivate people, because it's a reality. Again, I don't know the exact timing of it, but I know it's a reality. So if we can utilize stuff like that, and again, when scheduling somebody, understand and ask if they're interested in being on the quick call list, then we have the ability to play around with the schedule when we need to. Because the reality of life is that things change. The schedule falls apart. As much as I'd love to be able to provide you with the verbiage that would, and the magic wand that would prevent the schedule from ever falling apart, I don't have it. But if we can use certain words to evoke an emotional response to help that, and then have a plan in place in the event it does happen, so for example, we can move people up, then all of a sudden it allows us to keep going. And it allows us, because now if we're moving someone up to today, now all I have to worry about is next week, or 3 days, or 4 days. And it's a lot easier when you've got that amount of time to be able to adjust it and play around with it and not lose track of what that person's going to happen or be. Can't talk real good today. And it allows you to play around so much more to where you can have the flexibility. What I'm trying to do is give you flexibility, and it took me 30 seconds to come up with the word flexibility. So again, don't ask yes or no questions. Ask either, A or B sort of alternative type questions. drive urgency with whatever's in their chart, understanding what's important to them, understanding if vanity is important to them, cardiovascular health is important to them, stroke's important to them. Knowing their medical history will allow you to utilize those tools to create that urgency, to drive that behavior. And ultimately, all we're trying to do is get them healthy. You know, as much as maybe someone's sitting there going, man, Darren's fear-mongering a lot. Ultimately, what I'm trying to do is make them healthy. I'm not trying to sell them unnecessary stuff they don't need. I'm not trying to sell them undercoating on a car. I'm trying to sell them something and get them healthy via utilizing urgency. And I hope it's coming across that way. If you have questions on any of this, please get in touch with your coach. The idea of the show is not to provide the end-all, be-all right here, say it exactly the way Darren says it. What I'm trying to do is provide you the tools that start a dialogue with you and your coach so you can customize it and personalize it for your practice, for how you want it, for how each one of you is in the practice. So take this information, get a dialogue going to the coach, and you know, Darren said this crazy thing. Can we do something slightly different? And brainstorm with them, because I've said some crazy things for sure. I hope you enjoy the show. Email me future topics you want to see or get them to your coach. Otherwise, I'll see you next week, 8 a.m. Mountain, 10 o'clock on the East Coast, and 9 a.m. in the middle of the country, if that's where you're at. Can't wait to see you next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. What if you could have the practice of your dreams? What's holding you back? Imagine a life where you have everything you ever wanted.